Welcome to the Borderless Podcast, your guide to traveling, investing, and living beyond borders, where we talk about living the life that you want to live, where you want to live it. From beautiful San Miguel de Allende, smack in the middle of Mexico, with your hosts, Jonathan Lockwood and James Guzman.
Welcome to the Borderless Podcast, traveling, investing, and living beyond borders. If you have an interest in a life that's different than the one that someone laid out for you, if you have an interest in living a more international lifestyle, if you're looking for a location-independent business, stuff like that, well, that's what we're here to talk to you about. And my name's Jonathan Lockwood. I'm here with James Guzman. Hey, James.
Hey, how's it going? Good.
We're here in the Borderless compound enjoying another beautiful San Miguel de Allende day.
That's right. Nice and fresh today. Kind of cool, but I'm enjoying it.
Right. I'm sort of getting I don't do a lot of Christmas stuff, but I'm getting gifts together for my daughter when I go see her in LA, and for Cecilia. You know, I'm kind of gathering together. It's kind of fun this year.
Yeah.
What about you, James?
I'm not a big Christmas guy myself.
Oh, okay. Shocking.
It's okay.
All right.
Yeah.
No. Okay, so our guest today is Zak Slayback of Praxis. Now, Zachary Slayback is an aviator and an entrepreneur. He's worked with various education-based nonprofits to try to better equip students with the tools to invent themselves as they mature. After growing frustrated with the traditional university model, especially with America's elite institutions, he now considers himself a partial Ivy League apostate. He's the editor of the forthcoming series of essays, Freedom Without Permission: How to Be Free in a World That Isn't. He hopes to make the complex systems of both education and aviation accessible for consumers as technology progresses. It should be noted he was one of LinkedIn's most influential voices on education in 2015 and has been published at Newsweek, the New York Examiner, the Daily Caller, and many more, along with having appeared on HuffPost Live and the Glenn Beck program. Zak lives and works from beautiful Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and he invites you. Feel free to contact him if you are visiting and want to grab a coffee. Welcome, Zak Slayback, to the Borderless Podcast.
Thanks for having me on, guys. I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to it. I have to say, it's not quite as beautiful today here in Pittsburgh as it is down in Mexico, I'm sure. I was walking in from my car earlier, and I started to get hit by this snow in the face. And
yes, you are.
It's the first time this year.
Yes, you are probably correct.
I've got a T-shirt on right now, so
yeah.
I'm in a sweater and like 3 layers. So.
So I noticed from some of the stuff I read on you, Zak, online, is that not only do you call yourself, I noticed you called yourself a partial Ivy League apostate, but also a Ivy League dropout. So explain that. What Ivy League?
I was enrolled at the University of Pennsylvania, and after my sophomore year, I didn't go back. I was involved in building Praxis, and I looked around myself and found myself happier, more fulfilled, more productive, more focused than I'd ever been in my life before. So I didn't return.
Right. Well, congratulations. That might have been. How did the family receive that, Zak?
That always makes family get-togethers a little awkward, but they're starting to come around.
There's always some like ne'er-do-well cousin looking at you like, what?
Yeah. For me, that's my aunt who's a professor at a university. So that's not really a huge surprise. Her attitude towards it.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. Well, we're going to invite her on next week to get her reaction. No. Okay. So why don't we jump right into this? So you dropped out. You dropped out of Penn, right, at the end of your sophomore year to get moving with Praxis. And there's how many of you are on the team of Praxis, the leadership team?
The Praxis team right now is 5 people. We have a couple others that we work with in a couple different capacities, but it's myself, our education director, our operations guy. We've got a marketing guy, and our CEO, Isaac.
Okay. So tell us what Praxis is in as few words as reasonably possible.
Okay. In as few words as reasonably possible, Praxis is the accelerator for the startup of you. That's the way I like to think about it. It's a way to accelerate both your education, your career, and your life. And in a few more words, we are a 1-year program where we take entrepreneurial young people ages 18 to 25, and we place them at growing startups and small to medium-sized businesses all around the United States. And now we're actually starting to look at some international businesses. And they work there for 10 months while completing a year-long education program with our education director.
Okay, so this is definitely an alternative to the traditional educational path.
Yep.
And so you say it's 10 months, and that's because the first couple of months, they're going through kind of a boot camp with you. Is that right?
Exactly. They go through 2 months with our education director where we have these Praxis advisors who work with them on weekly coaching sessions. And I like to think of it this way. You hire a fitness coach to get you in better shape physically. You have a Praxis advisor to help you get in a better shape for your career, for your intellectual development, and for your personal life.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I noticed that on your website you have 4 types of people that it says are pretty much the ideal people for Praxis. What would you say those 4 people are?
Yeah, well, the kind of archetypes that we have come to the program are young people who want to be entrepreneurs. They know they want to be entrepreneurs. And they know that they need more than college, right? Whether or not they have a college degree, we really don't care if an applicant has a college degree when they come to us. I'd say about half of the people who end up going through the program don't have college degrees. Mm-hmm. These people, these entrepreneurs, are people who want to go work with entrepreneurs. They want to see how a successful business is built, learn from that person's successes, learn from that person's failures, hopefully so they don't have to fail as often as many entrepreneurs have had to in their early lives. And then go out and build this business for themselves. One of the other ones that I identify with pretty closely is what I call the college opt-out. A lot of people hear the phrase dropout and they think, oh, you're going to go sit and eat Doritos and Cheetos on your couch for 4 years, right?
Which you will do, but you'll do other stuff.
You'll do other stuff too. College graduate will eat Doritos and Cheetos on their couch as well. The college opt-out is somebody who, very much like myself, they looked around. Maybe they went to college for a couple of years. They probably did fairly well. They might have done okay. But they wanted to build something. They wanted to get out there into the real world and get a real world education. And that's what we offer them to the program. The other 2 I like to look at are what I call the young professional and the gap year student. Young professional is somebody who maybe they have a college degree, maybe they don't, but they are trying to just get professional experience. They're trying to see what they like, what they don't like, work in an interesting kind of environment. The work experience we guarantee to our participants is not one where they're going to be grabbing people coffee and getting people, their laundry, their dry cleaning on their time down, right? Mm-hmm. One of our participants the other day, who's actually here in Pittsburgh with me, sold his boss's limousine. So he had to arrange to have somebody come pick up the limousine, get the money transferred over, and he posted the picture of him actually selling the limousine. So that's what he does in his spare time. And then the last one is what I call a gap year student. This is somebody who maybe is coming out of high school. They might have already been accepted to college, but they don't want to go right into college, right? They want to take a year off, maybe go travel to a new location, work there for a year, see what the world has to offer, the professional world, and then they'll decide maybe they will go to college, maybe they won't. But the important thing is that they're taking that year to kind of discover themselves both professionally and intellectually. We've had a few participants be this kind of person. I actually spoke to a CEO of a Silicon Valley company the other day who was interested in becoming one of our business partners because he himself was a gap year student. And that's how he found out what he wanted to do himself. So those are the 4 types: the opt-out, the young professional, the gap year student, and the entrepreneur.
Right. Cool. Well, if you're a Borderless Podcast listener and you go to discoverpraxis.com and click on Who's It For, you're probably one of those 4 people. So I'm guessing, Zak, that since you did go into the traditional university path there, you went to Penn, it took a while for it to really sink in with you that the traditional educational path was not what it pretends to be, right?
Yeah, no, I actually, I say this a little sheepishly, but I actually at one point wanted to go and become a professor myself. I know it's a little ironic now. I came, I did not come from one of these high schools in like the tri-state area around New York that just feed students to these elite institutions. So for me, this was like, oh, finally, I get to go somewhere where I get to study what I want to study. I get to be around people who are actually interested in ideas. Mm-hmm. I get to build a life for myself. And I found pretty much the exact opposite to be true. My peers were bored. My professors were bored. A lot of them great, absolutely phenomenal people, but they were bored. And there was this weird thing that I noticed that I'm sure you guys have probably seen in your own lives as well, where there was this path dependency where if you were, say you came into a place like Penn or somewhere else and you wanted to be an entrepreneur when you were a freshman or a scientist or whatever, by their junior year, a lot of my peers only wanted to be investment bankers or consultants. Right. And if that's what you want to do, great, go do that. Do that to your heart's desire. But a lot of them didn't want to do that. They were going to go into those fields because to do otherwise would be a waste of an Ivy League degree in their minds. And that was really just sad. Yeah, a place that is supposed to bring people's abilities to the fore actually ended up quashing a lot of them. And you see that in really any kind of higher education environment that's so heavily structured.
Yeah. So what's the major differences between the curriculum or whatever you want to call it, the skills that you're teaching people in Praxis compared to a standard university?
Yeah, there are a couple things. First and foremost, our education experience is learner driven, right? There is nothing in our curriculum that we tell the participant you have to do, and it's not related to anything else in your life, right? One of the things that bothered me the most when I was in school was I had to take all these stupid required courses that were absolutely not related to anything I wanted to study at all. And it made me less focused and it made me less productive. We tell our participants, this is what we recommend during, say, the first 2 months of the boot camp. We have them build their own website that's their online portfolio, and we have them go through an entrepreneurship boot camp. But if there's anything along those lines while they're going through that they don't want to do, that they find to be a waste of their time or they find to be unrelated to what they want to achieve, we tell them that they have the grounds to challenge us and then recommend something else that they would rather do. We've had some participants do this in the past where they might be maybe they're more advanced than some other participants in digital skills. So we have them build a different kind of portfolio rather than the WordPress-based CSS portfolio that we normally have our participants build. The Praxis advisor that they work with is somebody who is really their tool to pull on. We don't call them students or anything like that because I think that student is a very passive kind of phrase. The other thing is that every 30 days after the 2-month boot camp, our participants get together with their advisors and then design a new professional development project that they're going to do for the next 30 days. So that might involve some learning. Maybe they want to learn some economics. Maybe they want to learn some philosophy. They want to learn some history. We do think that liberal arts is important. Some of the best entrepreneurs I know are highly intellectual people, but the participant has the power to find out and go after what they want to learn.
Gotcha. Very interesting. You know, I was talking to Cecilia about this last night, this interview, and she was asking me about that boot camp process. Is it virtual? Is it online? Or do they actually go to a physical location?
Yeah, we do a get-together once a year, but the boot camp process is all virtual.
Okay.
So we have participants located all over the country in the U.S., and we actually have one in Australia now. And they do their boot camp with their Praxis advisor through video conferencing software. So we don't want them to have to be tied down to any specific place.
Gotcha. You know, what it occurs to me you have to do first before you get these participants in here is you've got to make sure you've got businesses you can partner with and put them with and make sure that they're of high quality and that they're committed to the concept, right?
Yep. That's where most of my time is spent. I primarily deal with finding new companies that I think would be excellent fits for our participants and filtering the companies that come to us that want to host participants. So absolutely. There are certain characteristics of companies that I think are better fits for Praxis participants. One thing I've noticed is in my conversations with entrepreneurs, with founders or CEOs, when I'm talking to them about hosting a Praxis participant, if they tell me totally unsolicited, I wish that we had this when I was, 18 or whatever, that almost always means that they will be a great host. Mm-hmm. If I have to try to explain to them, yeah, no, we're not a for-profit college. We're not a college. It's not, a technical school. Then it's just usually not a great fit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I was thinking about that to get the buy-in. I mean, the only thing when I worked in the world of radio, we'd always get interns. And so many of them just got abused. They were just flunkies, and I'm sure these business partners realize that that's not the way it works here. But is there something required of them in order to work with you? Are they paying something for this, if you don't mind my asking?
Yeah, absolutely. So how the program works out, this is actually a good big picture kind of place to step back to as well. How the program works out is that the participants pay us a tuition, and then their business partner will pay them a wage. So the business partner doesn't pay us anything. They don't pay us a finder's fee. They don't pay us a retainer or anything like that. But they pay the participant a wage. And how that works out is that the participant ends up actually earning back every dollar that they pay us in tuition. So the program's zero cost, net zero cost. We also do have certain things that we've instituted just to make sure that the participant gets the most out of their business partner experience and the business partner gets the most out of the participant. We tell the business partners, these are not just run-of-the-mill interns. They're not even really interns. The phrase to describe a Praxis participant doesn't even really exist in the English language. These are young people who are going to add real substantive value for you. The buy-in for you, it's low risk and it's pretty high reward. So they communicate once a month with the Praxis advisor that's working with the participant, letting them know, hey, maybe John's working this month on developing something for this big gala we have coming up. Can you help him with a little bit in events management? So the education experience is the slave of the business partner experience as well. So the participant's always increasing in their marginal value that they add to the business partner. We really want the business partners to get the most out of it, and we really want the participants to get the most out of it at the same time.
Yeah, that's great. Do you have some specific examples maybe that you could share with us of some, I don't know, if you don't want to say students, some participants that have then moved on to one of your business partners and how that's worked out for them?
Yeah, a couple come to my mind right now. I mentioned the one participant who is here in Pittsburgh. He is currently still in the program, but he's having a phenomenal experience doing a variety of things. That company is a holdings company that owns a crane company, a construction company, and a hotel. Not the sexiest thing in the world, right? But he's getting a phenomenal education experience, a phenomenal work experience. Every day he's out there, on rooftops selling people rentals for these like multi-million-dollar cranes. So he's getting a great experience with an entrepreneur who runs a real profitable business. And we have other participants who are more, your run-of-the-mill, I don't want to say run-of-the-mill startups because that's kind of a contradiction, but more at your kind of startup-y environment. One of our graduates, James Walpole, for example, James was at a company in Atlanta called BitPay. Maybe some of your listeners are familiar with it. They're Bitcoin payment processor. And while he was at BitPay, James was working in the marketing department. James came right out of high school. He emailed me one day out of the blue when I had an internship posting up on the internet asking me to be my intern. And I told him, I actually already filled this position, but you wrote a phenomenal email. This shows a ton of tenacity. I got to give it to you. You're a high school senior. Why don't you apply for the program? And he did. And he was a phenomenal applicant. And we sent him into BitPay, and he worked in their marketing department right out of high school. He's working in the marketing department of, one of the world leaders in a new industry. And to this day, he still works there, and he is the head of their marketing department. James Walpole runs BitPay's marketing department. So,
how old is he?
James, I think, is 19 now.
Oh, Jesus,
I don't know.
Wow.
He'll always be 18 in my mind. Right. Sorry if you're listening, James.
Yeah, that's awesome. You know what's funny? When I graduated college, I thought that there would be all these companies with jobs lining up and stuff like that, but that definitely was not the case. I remember specifically there was pretty much nobody there. I don't know anybody that I graduated with that got a job just as easily as they thought they would.
Yeah. No, I mean, one of our slogans is "You're worth more than college," and I tie that back in. That can be looked at in two ways, right? The one way is you're 18 years old. You're like, I want to, I just want to go out and start building my life. What do? I guess I have to go to college. That's even for me. I was a pretty driven and productive young person. That's really how the college mindset came to me. Or you're graduating from college and you realize, wait, this didn't do for me what everybody told me it would.
Right.
Oh, my money back.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, exactly.
It didn't work.
That's what we want to enable people to do. We want them to be able to take control of their lives, both professionally and intellectually. We place a really high importance on both of those.
Right. I mean, it's just it's a story you hear all the time. My daughter, Chelsea's 28 and graduated from Arizona State, political science and philosophy and all that. And she realized at some point a degree in law was not for her, and she was a little depressed, but good for her. She started tweeting and she developed this big following, and now she's a super well-followed Twitterer, and she is the social media director at CBS TV's Entertainment Tonight. So
wow.
Good for her. Great story. But I paid a fuckload, and she is still going to be paying off these loans for God knows how long,
right. Yeah.
So, I mean, let's be honest about that. So you talk a little bit about getting the buy-in from the business partners, but you're telling them, look, these people we're sending you are going to be of high quality. They're going to make a difference in your business. Well, does that mean you reject some people who apply?
Oh yeah, we have about a 10% acceptance rate, maybe a little bit below that.
Wow.
We look for very specific characteristics in our applicants. We don't just accept anybody who comes to the program. And if somebody is not a good fit, we tell them you're not a good fit for this. We want people who have great sense of work ethic and a great sense of self-worth. Those are the two things that I think at the end of the day really make somebody who's a great Praxis applicant. We devote a good chunk of our time to our application review process.
Yeah. Now, if somebody is in the 90%, say that they, they don't think that they, they're not so extremely well, hard drivers and this type of stuff. What are some other options to college that you might recommend for people like that?
Yeah, it depends on the person's skill set and their interests, of course. We do sometimes there are people who are marginal candidates who maybe if they came back to Praxis a year later after working a little bit on some of their work ethic or something like that, they might get in if they applied again. We've had people apply twice. But I really like Mike Rowe in the work that he does, the former host of Dirty Jobs. Right. I'm a big believer in the importance of like mid-market businesses. A lot of the very successful entrepreneurs that I know aren't people running, multi-million-dollar startups that have never turned a dime of profit. They run profitable, real companies that need people who can be, contractors and construction workers and crane operators and all these other things. Those people make good money. The number one thing at the end of the day that I tell people is whatever you do, don't do it passively, right? Think actively about it. That's one of the most dangerous things I think about making college, quote unquote, affordable through loans and grants and all these other things for people is that there's no buy-in, right? If people actually had to pay themselves for a degree in underwater basket weaving studies of the African diaspora, then they might actually try to get something out of it. So that's really at the end of the day. I think that there are a lot of other programs out there kind of like Praxis. There's Exosphere. They do some short things. There's the Teal Fellowship. But if you're not in the 90% that you don't get into Praxis, the Teal Fellowship is closer to Praxis. There is Uncollege. They run a program called Gap Year. There's a couple things kind of in this space. But if you're somebody who you just don't think that college is the right fit for you, good. Thank you for actually thinking about that, not putting your life on autopilot like a lot of young people do. But there are a lot of other options out there that I think that people really should seriously look at.
Yeah. There's another one, Draper. What's his name? He's a big investor. Draper has
Draper University.
Draper University, yeah. Anyways, yeah, there's lots of. I'm actually thinking about going to Exosphere in January. We had one of the past students on was the last podcast, I believe. Right. Or it'll be 2 back now. But anyways, yeah, we're working along with them as well. So that's something that people can check out. Exosphere down in Chile. Yeah, so that's great. You did mention this very quickly. You mentioned these businesses that have no profit. You were talking about the technology industry in the United States, and I was looking at your blog, and it looks like you've written something on that as well. I've been looking at that also, and I don't know what's going on there. A lot of people, that's one of the highly coveted places if people want to go to Silicon Valley and get a job with one of these technology companies. What do you think about that? What's going to be what's going on in that sector, and what's going to be the future of employment there?
Yeah, I think that Mark Andreessen from Andreessen Horowitz is absolutely right that software is eating the world, right? A lot of these mid-market companies that I like need to take up some kind of software innovation, or else they're going to be eaten up by, other kind of competitors. The thing about Silicon Valley and a couple other places, this kind of like sexy tech startup scene, right? Where, I'm going to become a customer happiness representative at a company that sends Nepalese paperweights by mail for $5 a year or something like that, right? You walk into the office and people are sitting on beanbag chairs with their dogs, and there's a beer tap, and it's just all weird. The thing about that space that worries me is that there's a lot of people who go there who are more interested in what I call wantrpreneurship or sizzlepreneurship. Mm-hmm. They're not actually interested in the hustle and the grit that's required to actually build a successful business. There's a lot of conversation about, is there a bubble, right? Is there a bubble in the tech world or in venture capital? And I don't think that matters. I don't think whether there's a bubble or not matters. I think there's some weird macroeconomic things going on in the broader picture, but the kind of respect given to just going to work at a quote unquote startup that doesn't have a working business model or anything like that, it ends up taking people away from things where they could actually be adding real value. Mm-hmm. And that's why it worries me,
Well, I mean, you're talking about a misallocation of value and capital. I mean, isn't that pretty much the definition of a bubble?
Yeah, I mean, there's if you look at a lot of the data about, it depends on how we end up defining the bubble on the data side of things. Andreessen Horowitz has a really good deck where they actually look at past bubbles like the .com bubble and a couple other things on their website, which is a16z.com. And they end up saying it doesn't look like we have a bubble like we did in 1999, 2000, 2001. But absolutely, in the broader macroeconomic picture, there is certainly a misallocation of resources. There's a misallocation of human capital. There's a misallocation of liquid capital. There's a lot of weird things going on in that broader space. I know a lot of smart people who go to work at the Nepalese paperweight company in San Francisco when they could actually be adding real substantive value to a company in Pittsburgh or in Denver or in Austin.
Yeah. And, another thing that has to do, that goes along with that is, even if you do achieve this job and you enjoy it and it pays a lot, living in some of these cities is just so astronomically expensive.
Oh, yeah.
I wrote an article a couple months back. It was called Silicon Valley Debt Slavery. And there was a person that I saw, it was a Quora response of a person that had achieved that. They'd gone to college, they had 10 years of experience in the field. This person and their husband, it was a woman and her husband, had both achieved what they wanted to, and they had they between all their expenses and everything else, they had like $300 left each month, and she went and listed all of her expenses. And so I just know there's a lot of that going on as well, that even once if you do achieve this occupation that you like, and there's a lot of other variables that you have to take into account as well. I mean, maybe that has to do with financial education or something like that. I don't know if you guys get into that.
Yeah, we do have that option available for a lot of the people in the program. I think that I know that I've just now recently really started delving into financial education myself, and I'm sure some of your listeners have done this too and have had this moment. It's like, oh crap, I didn't get any kind of financial education through my formal schooling. I mean, that's one of the reasons too we like to send our participants to places that are not. We do have some business partners in the Bay Area and places like that, but we also have business partners in places like Atlanta, places like Pittsburgh, others like that. If you end up looking at people who are able to retire early, a lot of them, and again, I'm sure you guys have talked about this, but a lot of them live in places where it's not exorbitantly expensive to live. Mm-hmm. So retiring early is just a lot easier.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. I think a lot about the word retirement, because I don't know that I ever want to retire. Right. Maybe I will, but here in San Miguel de Allende, where we are, right, me and Jonathan are, there's a lot of people who you could definitely say are retired. They don't do much, but it's very inexpensive to live. I mean, there's lots of places if you live outside of the United States, if you have $50,000 or something, I mean, you're pretty good. I mean, you could do something to kind of occupy your time, but it's incredible how much it changes your life to live in a place that is less expensive. So It's just something else to think about. This is one thing that we talk about a lot on this podcast, just as far as trying to get a work remotely or get a location-independent business or something like that will allow you to improve that aspect of your life as well.
Right. I want to talk to you a little bit, Zak, about the actual application process, the typical people who do apply, program costs, stuff like that. But we need to take just a moment to give some attention to our sponsor. Today's Borderless Podcast brought to you by the Condescending Group, your oblivious leader in the ongoing effort to feel superior to other people. This week, the Condescending Group posted a series of articles on the subject of New Age self-improvement. And in putting it all together, it amounts to a lot of consolation to those who are constantly trying some new weird thing to feel enlightened. Whether it's crystals, primal screams, or even midnight placenta feasts, you shouldn't be worried that it's been 15 years and there's been no discernible improvement to your life. No. What's more important is that you just keep on with the tarot card readings, ramtha channeling, and mushroom anal suppositories. Because the reality is, becoming a normal person who doesn't need constant affirmation about his or her self-worth in order to keep from killing yourself is unlikely and overrated anyway. And there are just so many beautifully bizarre New Age fads being created every day that just by continuing on a desperate zigzag path from one nutty thing to the next, you can continue to delude yourself that enlightenment and peace are always just around the corner. It's better that way. Go to thecondescendinggroup.com now and click on the super high hippie chick icon for more than 700,000 New Age options now. The Condescending Group, they care more than you. Okay, we're back to the Borderless Podcast. We are talking to Zak Slayback of Praxis, and he's been enlightening us to Praxis and just the options available to people that are not on the traditional educational path. But I want to ask you, what is the I imagine the youngest age is maybe 18 that you've admitted to the Praxis program. What about the oldest person that you've ever accepted into the program? Can you share that?
Yeah, we actually accepted a couple classes ago. We accepted a young Canadian man who had dropped out of med school to participate in the program, and he was in his late 20s. Okay. Now, this is fun to tie into this show. Due to visa requirements, he was ultimately unable to participate. But we have had some people. We have had some people who are coming from graduate school, though. One of our current participants left his economics graduate program to participate in the program, and he's working at a company in North Carolina now. Mm-hmm. So, okay, yeah, 1825 is kind of like it's not a hard and fast window. The youngest person we accepted is actually 17. We'll be 18 when she starts her business partner, but yeah.
Okay, so I'm looking at, when you go to the discoverpraxis.com website, you can see apply. You click on it, and you're going to enter in all of your basic information. You're going to answer the question, what makes you a good fit for Praxis in 600 words or less? Are you looking for a tuition scholarship? There's just certain questions. So you apply online. Then what happens next after you do that?
Yeah, we have a staff member who reviews the applications, and what we're looking for in those applications are a couple of things. Can you think critically about a pretty simple question in a pretty short amount of time? Can you just provide basic information? Filter out some of the loonies. And then what we'll do is we'll do a request for a resume and a writing sample. We're looking for there is not necessarily a well-written resume, though that's always nice to see, and a strong sense of writing. That's very important. A lot of our applicants who succeed are good verbal and written communicators. But we're also looking for just a very professional sense of urgency. Will you respond to emails within a reasonable amount of time, or is it going to take you 2 weeks to get back to us about that information? We don't want to send someone. I don't want to, when I place somebody with a business partner, I don't want to introduce them to the business partner via email and they reply 2 weeks later. So there are certain things we're looking for there that are kind of intangibles that go to like work ethic and what I call a sense of forward tilt eagerness. We also do a video kind of assignment where we ask the person to answer a question and upload a video to YouTube of them answering the question. They set their own deadline for when they want to do that, and they send that to us. And once they go through everything on that side of the process, they end up interviewing with 2 Praxis team members, one of whom is our education director, TK. And then if he recommends them for a second interview, they'll interview with me. When they interview with me, I'm looking for, a couple other things. I tell them this at the beginning of the interview, that this is my role. I do business development. I maintain our relationships with our business partners. So tell me, why are you a good fit for the program? Why should I put the Praxis brand on you and put you in front of a company whose CEO, whose founder I respect? And we're looking for just people who make us proud. There's a lot of things that go into that.
Eager forward tilt.
Yes.
Is that, what did you say? Forward tilt eagerness?
Yeah. So.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, there are a couple traits that I really, really think make the absolute best applicants for the program. And I actually, again, I'm open about this. I actually wrote a blog post on this on the Praxis blog the other day. And one of those is forward tilt, meaning if you've ever interviewed somebody, are they leaning in to talk to you? Are they eager, or do they want to jump on the opportunity? Because a lot of the people, that's not just metaphorical. A lot of the people who are the best applicants, the most, on the ball A-type people I've met, literally are leaning in to their webcam when I talk with them. And that's a great trait to see. That, again, that's another one of those intangibles. But I look for things like that, focus, bias for creation, a couple other things.
That's great. So we just have given you, anybody listening to the Borderless podcast, you have a little tip there. Just angle that webcam and be at fully at least 45 degrees, if not more, into the webcam. And
yeah, I don't want to be. I prefer they angle themselves, because if you angle the webcam too much, I'm staring into someone's crotch.
Okay, good point.
Yeah,
good point.
I want to talk a little bit more about how you see the university system in the United States. A lot of people call it a bubble. I've been looking at the amount of debt that's just been piling on this sector for years now, and what do you think is going to come out of this? Is this a bubble that is going to pop in just the standard sense of a bubble? How is this going to end up, say, in the next 5 years or so?
Yeah, I'm not an economist, so I don't want to make any kind of predictions, anything like that. But it's not sustainable, right? Yeah. It's clearly not sustainable. There are a lot of economic reasons why it's not sustainable. Good friend of mine, Anthony Davies, he's a professor at Duquesne University, has a lot of really good stuff on this. He's an econometrician, so he is actually an economist, and can speak to this. And he's looked at the data. And it mirrors the housing bubble, right? The only thing with the housing bubble is you can actually foreclose on somebody's home if they're not making their mortgage.
Right.
You can't foreclose, and you can declare bankruptcy if you can't make your payments. You can't foreclose on somebody's degree. You can't declare bankruptcy and get rid of all your student debt. So that's not sustainable when you have $1.2+ trillion in student debt in the United States today. I think what's going to happen is that a lot of higher education, higher schooling is just going to become irrelevant as it becomes easier and easier for employers to verify somebody's competency and their skills through things like the internet. I think the higher education revolution is actually happening all around us and nobody's noticing. And that's just the growth of platforms like Google and LinkedIn, and WordPress and Squarespace and others.
Absolutely. And, I see on your blog that you were talking about Ernst Young. I also shared that article when that came out. They've stopped requiring a degree. Are there any other companies that you have spoken to or that you have heard about that are no longer requiring a university degree?
Yeah, Goldman Sachs actually released a report the other day saying that they don't think that the college degree is all that valuable for a lot of people. I don't think that they've actually made that HR move yet to not require it, but that's one of the first moves that they'll have to do, right? Just an aside, I'm not conspiratorial about these things, but I always find it funny when somebody looks at studies saying that a college degree is clearly worth it. They're always put out by universities. And then when these companies like Ernst & Young and Goldman, whose jobs it is to do studies and research like this, look into these things and they say, actually, that's not the case. But everybody likes to cite Google. Google doesn't require a degree, right? I was speaking to somebody here in Pittsburgh the other day whose roommate from college is working at Apple now. He ended up dropping out of college to go work at Apple. A lot of the companies I work with, what I'll find on their websites when I'm prospecting them is that they'll say they might have a degree requirement, but they've added something unique that has really, really become popular in, I'd say, the last 3 to 5 years. And that's, whatever BA or BS, or equivalent work experience. So it's becoming more of a negotiable for a lot of companies because they just can't find the right talent. And good talent is really, really, really hard to find.
I expect we'll be seeing more examples of that as the future unfolds here. Yeah. So I noticed that the applications, so you can start this program. It's not like another way it's not like the typical experience is that classes start at the beginning of each month.
Yep.
Right. So, you can literally start this at any time, and there should be no reason why it doesn't go in that path. Now, let's talk. I think this next point is going to be very exciting to those of you listening to this, thinking this might be right for you. Let's talk about the costs of Praxis. I notice there are 3 options, but what is the cost, if you don't mind sharing, Zach?
Yeah, the net cost of the program is $0.
Right.
We you guys have brought it up. The extravagant cost of college is one of the reasons that people are actually putting it under the microscope for the first time in a long time. And we don't want to tell people, you got to take out a personal loan in order to do Praxis. No, we want it to be affordable. One of our alumni actually, who finished the program last year, just emailed us the other day to let us know that he hit all of his sales goals for the year and he's making 6 figures. So, and he didn't have to go into debt to do the program.
Right. But there is still something that gets, the reason it's the net cost is 0 is because you're making it back from the business partner, but they do still have to come up with something.
Right. They pay us a tuition, and then their business partner pays them an hourly wage. And we've had business partners who pay above the hourly wage. We've had business partners who pay commission. We just make sure that when I have a business partner sign the agreement to become a business partner, they guarantee the wage of $10 an hour because on that calculus, the participant, if they choose 2 of the 3 payment plans, the participant won't have to go into the red at all at any point to pay for the program.
Okay. Yeah, so we'll go to the show notes, and you can click on over to the page that discusses just how that happens.
A lot of people that we speak to and that listen to the podcast would consider themselves to be kind of digital nomads or something like that. And they have, a lot of times they'll have children with them. And a lot of times people won't, take that path because they have children. So this education comes up a lot as far as, what to do if you have children and you're kind of on the road, and would it make sense for them not to have a specific diploma? Are you screwing them over by doing that? And so there are all different types of opinions on that. Some people use online, just a standard. I don't know what you would call it, but it's kind of like the high school diploma online that you can do.
Like a cyber school.
Yeah, curriculum. Some people do that. Some people just say, you know what, we let them kind of an unschooling type thing. They take art classes, they learn from tutors or whatever, and that we just hope that if they do want to go to college, it'll, that the college will accept them and they won't need a diploma, or that the a job or whatever, or they'll start their own business. A lot of people want their children to start their own business. So do you have any advice maybe to some people, or what are your ideas on ways that people can do that if they have a teenager or a young child that they're trying to educate while they might be living in a different country or something like that?
Yeah, this is a great question. I've talked to a number of people who do this, and my colleague Isaac is actually taking his family to Ecuador, this coming February, and he's got 3 young children who he mostly unschools. When we think about the credential, like the diploma or the degree or whatever, we have to remember what it actually is, right? It is a signal. It signals to, HR managers or, admissions officers or whatever, that this candidate meets, minimum requirements. It is a minimally viable signal is what that means. Mm-hmm. I think if you are somebody who is, a digital nomad and is traveling around and has children, one of the best things that your children can do, or if you're, you're the child of a digital nomad and you want to do these things, is build a better signal. I think that can be done in a variety of ways. It's really, really simple. Buy a domain name that has your name in it, build your own website, put up some of the work that you've done up there, actually spend 20 minutes putting your LinkedIn together. People crap on LinkedIn, but it's actually a phenomenal platform. I had a phone call with a young man yesterday morning who, by spending 2.5 minutes looking at his LinkedIn, I learned a lot more than I could have had he told me, yes, I'm a student at the University of Notre Dame. What does that tell me? That doesn't tell me anything. If you actually build some kind of presence, I think that can be a much, much more powerful signal. So
well, if you don't mind, let's go into that a little deeper for a second.
Yeah.
For people on LinkedIn, what are some specific advice that you would give them if they want to stand out?
Yeah, no. So LinkedIn is, it gets a bad rap. I was reading a book the other day that said, like the mafia or LinkedIn, the more you try to get away from it, the more it grows on you, or something like that. People were probably used to all the obnoxious emails and like, Zachary, please add me to your network on LinkedIn. But LinkedIn is actually a phenomenal platform that if you spend 15, 20, 30 minutes working on, the curve for being in like the top 25% of people on there is really easy to overcome. The couple things I would look at is, actually upload a decent headshot. That's really straightforward and really commonsensical, but you would be amazed at the number of people who don't do that. Upload a decent headshot. Don't just connect with whoever. It's not Facebook. It's not Twitter. You shouldn't just connect with people. There is a follow button. If you want to see what that person posts, use that. That's more like Twitter. But you don't want to just connect with anybody because that dilutes.
What's the downside of that?
Yeah, if you're trying to you're trying to get a recommendation or you're trying to get a job or something like that, that just dilutes your presence, right? Because you start popping up in all these people's feeds and they're like, who the heck is this person? Maybe they accepted you months ago and now they just think of you as like some weirdo who's stalking them on the internet. If you are going to add people you don't actually know, don't use the stock, I'd like to add you to my network on LinkedIn.
Okay.
Put a real message in there and say why you're adding them. I've actually thought multiple times about writing an article that's like 10 ways to suck at LinkedIn.
Right.
One of the other ways is, and I want to throw this in real quickly. I apologize if this is
No, this is good. Yeah.
One of the other things that people really, really, really miss a lot about LinkedIn, James, you mentioned that you shared one of my posts from there. Well, anybody can write those kinds of long form posts. LinkedIn is actually a blogging platform now. So if you're a decent writer, and it's not hard to be a relatively decent writer, write a post on LinkedIn. They look beautiful. When you look at your profile, they're right there. And this young man I spoke with yesterday morning, because he had like 4 posts on there, I was able to actually learn a lot about him. And that, more than anything else, actually provided me a ton of information. So actually just spend some time getting to know the platform.
Okay. Yeah, so you would say, so sometimes I share my my blogs on LinkedIn, but maybe it's a better idea to actually put the text in the LinkedIn platform itself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No. It's some good advice. Actually, this podcast and the Borderless blog started out in that way. I thought that kind of the resume for today is a way to show your competency is to have a blog, have a website that has some of your work on it, a bio and some pictures, and that's kind of how this the blog started, and then it's turned into a lot more. But that's a great way to signal to people that you know how to write and things like that. I know that you mentioned writing being one of the core competencies. There was an interview I listened to not too long ago with Tim Ferriss, and he was saying that when he goes to hire people or train people, that two of the two most important skills that he looks for in people and that he thinks it's important if you're going to be, especially if you're going to be an entrepreneur, is number one, writing, being able to write well and express yourself. Also, negotiation skills.
Yep.
So those are he said were the 2 most important skills. Anyways, what are some of the other skills that you guys teach there at Praxis?
Yeah, so the people who come to Praxis, we were not like a coding school or anything like that where people come to us only if they want to learn one set of skills. But we do focus. We do a lot of writing. We do a lot of verbal kind of communication. We encourage our participants, for example, in a participant's PDP, their professional development project. They might have to email a successful person in their town and get coffee with them for an hour. For some people, that can be kind of intimidating. But we also do look at some all of our participants leave the program with some very basic digital skills. They understand social media marketing. They understand how to build a website on something like WordPress, how to integrate different things with that. One of the other things that I think is really, really important for any young person is just an ability to put yourself out there. I really don't, and this isn't really a skill, but I think that this comes with writing, right? I encourage people when they're building a digital brand to occasionally write about something pretty controversial, because if I am looking you up and I only find things that everybody is going to nod their heads about, like, oh, AIDS is terrible or something like that. You look
milk
like
toast, boring stuff.
Right. You look like you're going to be running for Senate in 15 years. I'm not interested in that.
Yes.
It's weird. Mm-hmm. So there are a lot of things, and it really depends on what the candidate wants to learn. We've got a massive curriculum that we pull on that includes philosophy, history, econ, business, tech and digital skills, and all these other different things.
Yeah, that's interesting. You mentioned that. In our interview with Chris DeLama, we went into that a lot. In that it seems like with the internet being opening up so much of the market, allowing not only a lot more clients, but a lot more people to get into the market and start their own businesses and create their own following or whatever you call it. That by differentiating yourself with controversial things or stating your opinion, and the people that are like you, agree with you, or they're going to be more attracted to you, and then people that are not going to be good clients anyway or customers, then they're going to be repelled by that, which you actually want. So so this information age type of business actually is it behooves you to put your opinion out there at least every once in a while. Too much, I guess, is probably not good either. But yeah, it's a good point.
Zak, how many participants are you currently accepting? Do you plan to expand the number of participants? And how is Praxis doing financially?
Yeah, so I'm going to answer the question on the number of participants in a bit of a roundabout way. Okay. We don't have a cap for how many participants we will accept, right? Colleges do this, and they'll do like really weird things too to keep their acceptance rates low. They'll encourage people to apply who they know they're going to reject, for example, because if you have a lower acceptance rate, you get a higher rate ranking in the U.S. News and World Report ranking, all else out equal. We don't do that. If we had 1,000 applicants apply tomorrow who were qualified and who were going to do the program, we would accept all 1,000 of them. Okay. So I know I've got business partners who are hungry for young people right now, competent young people. I have business partners, companies coming to me all the time saying like, this sounds awesome. I want to get on this. Please send someone my way. So then we also have our recruitment kind of side of things where we try to go out and identify successful young people who will be successful at the program. We've had right in the 30s is the number of participants that we've had go through the program or currently in the program right now. How we're doing financially, we're expanding in a lot of different ways. We are not only expanding the number of business partners we have, but we've got a couple really cool projects coming down the pipeline. Keep looking at our website, I'd say, in early 2016. So that would, if a company is not doing well, they don't tend to go out and start doing more projects unless you're the U.S. Postal Service.
Okay. Right. So if somebody's not going through Praxis, but I'm just curious, since you have all these business partners and you talk to people in this field, as far as remote jobs and stuff like that, are more people hiring those types of things? You said they're hungry for people. Do you find a lot of positions for people that will allow them to do that now?
Yeah, I mean, we have a number of business partners who are perfectly fine with remote positions. I actually, I think that there is a benefit, especially if you're like 18, 19 years old, to actually going and working in a work environment. Maybe that benefit is that you learn you really don't like working in work environments. But I think that is really important. The participants that we send into the remote roles are probably the most independent participants we have. They're the ones who are most have like kind of the mental tenacity to be okay with maybe not seeing anybody for a couple of days. Like I work remote a good chunk of the time. I'm talking to you right now from my home office, and it's not easy. Not everybody can do it. So We do see a lot of companies who have that possibility, though. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
I do want to ask you the question that we ask, or we try to ask all of our interviewees here, and that is, if there is a young person maybe thinking about joining Praxis, or maybe they're thinking about starting their own business or something like that, other than going to Praxis, what's the best piece of advice that you would give that person?
Yeah, if they know what they want to do and they're just waiting around for the opportunity to do it, this sounds kind of like a platitude, but just go do it. A lot of people are in what I call a very schooled mindset, where they believe they have to have some kind of permission or they have to have some sort of qualification before they can actually go out and launch something themselves, right? Now, that doesn't mean just go jump off a cliff, right? But there's this famous quote that's like, an entrepreneur is someone who jumps off a cliff and builds wings or a parachute on the way down. Yeah. I mean, don't go jump off a cliff, literally speaking. But I think that the experience you will gain by just going and starting your project now, even if it fails, is monumentally more valuable than just sitting around and waiting to do it, right? This is one of the things I'm a big advocate of. When a young person turns 18 years old, if their parents have a college savings fund for them, ultimately the parents get to decide what they want to do with it, but they should just give the kid the money and tell them they can do whatever they want with it, include go to college. And if they go and they blow it on a bunch of stupid cars or something, they'll end up learning more about financial literacy than they would have if they'd gone and sat in a classroom and done basket weaving for 4 years.
Gotcha. Wow. We appreciate that perspective so much, Zak. So would you like a better educational experience? Would you like that experience to result in an actual positive real world outcome? Does the idea of being forced to learn by rote a ton of shit, much of which will be utterly useless for your future, make you want to go jump off a deep, jagged cliff? Do you have a forward tilt eagerness? Well, maybe Praxis is right for you. And thank you so much, Zak Slayback, for being our guest today on the Borderless Podcast.
Yeah, thank you guys. Thanks for having me.
What a great guy Zak Slayback is.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I really like what they're doing there, and I look forward to seeing how it all develops. I think it's only they've been doing it a couple of years now. I'm not sure exactly how long, but
I could tell you were into it because you were kind of zoned out when you first got here this morning, and you woke up and started asking.
The coffee started
questions.
hitting me. It's a little earlier than normal, but
right. So, do we have any new reviews?
Well, we have a review here on Stitcher. That's the thing. I don't know if people know that. What most people download it through iTunes, but we do have we're on Stitcher as well, if that's convenient for you. And we have a review on there from Chris G. And he says, power-packed information. Jonathan and James have a wealth of knowledge regarding all topics relevant to living outside your home borders. Taxes, investing, location-independent businesses, etc. In addition, they host very relevant and knowledgeable guests to discuss all these topics. Please keep up the great work, gents.
All right. Thank you for that. That's nice. And we would love it if you would go over to either Stitcher or iTunes and leave us a rating or review. Mm-hmm. If you do, make it fun. We'll read it on the podcast. Even if it's not fun, we'll probably read it on the podcast. So just leave one. Mm-hmm. And so I'm excited, James. I think you were there last night. We were at a mutual friend's sort of birthday get-together. Yep. And my offer on some land here in San Miguel de Allende was accepted yesterday.
Yeah, that's great.
I'm super excited. It's a bunch of land. It's an area that is not that far away from Centro, really, when you consider how big a piece of land I got.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited about that, especially when you consider what I got it for. I've been looking at this every way I can. I think it's a great long-term investment, so I'm excited about it.
We should have a bonfire opening party for your land.
There you go. And I've got to build on it now. Yeah. And I'm thinking maybe best case scenario, I can be finished with something in a couple of years because I don't want to do something too fast. We were talking to friend of the podcast, Gregory Deal, yesterday. He's got that land in Vilcabamba, Ecuador. It sounds like he's wanting to make some sort of lean-to or something. Right. And I don't know. He said like a natural earth substance just to go and hang out there for a while. Mm-hmm. Well, that sounds exciting for me 30 years ago, but not now. I want to make something really nice. I'm looking at adobe. There's all these different materials you can use. Mm-hmm. We'll see what I do.
Pack it with mezcal, right?
With mezcal, well, that's a given, I'm gonna hide the mezcal underground or something in a cellar. I'm getting so excited.
And some aquaponics, right?
Yeah, that's the plan, is to also create a little aquaponics greenhouse there. Cecilia is very knowledgeable about gardening and greenhouses and stuff like that. And so many of our friends have become knowledgeable in aquaponics, and I've been reading a lot about it, and it's just exciting as hell. You know, I really love it. Using aquaponics, you're using only about 10% of the water you ordinarily would in a regular greenhouse.
That's great for San Miguel also. I mean, it's not, very dry, but it is a bit, it's pretty arid.
Right.
Here, so that'd be great.
Yes. So anyway, I'm excited about it. Cool stuff. What's going on with Border? Oh, we had our call yesterday, right? Yeah,
absolutely. And we always love talking to the Borderless Society members. A lot of people that are doing different types of businesses that, they've been promoting on the Facebook page. And then we have our call we had yesterday. And like you said, we spoke to Gregory Deal and Ed up there in Canada and Olaf, yeah. And Netherlands coming down here to South America. So it's great to have kind of that support group here. And we like to talk to our members. So, if you are interested in this type of thing and, this might be your first time here in the podcast, go over to the borderlesspodcast.com webpage, and you can start by taking a quiz that we put together, and that'll give you an idea of maybe what the ideal place for you to live is. And then if you get on the mailing list, you'll receive all kinds of free information, blog posts, and things like that. And if you really want to get started, then look at the Borderless Society at borderlesssociety.com, and we have a members area where we have calls, and we have the Facebook group and a forum and a whole tutorial video course and all kinds of contacts all over the world. So it's really all you need to get started. So.
All right. Well, very good. Thanks for joining us, and a lot of interesting stuff on this podcast. Go over to the show notes, and there'll be lots of links and references to them. Another Borderless podcast coming up soon.
Thanks for joining us for the Borderless Podcast, traveling, investing, and living beyond borders.